Do you think that Brock Purdy could face a regression this season, a statistical regression, because he's been exposed to the league for about a season and a half? NFL defenses are very, very good to the point that the NFL is constantly changing rules to increase scoring and failing to do so. So hold on. I got some numbers. Before you say no, I just want to throw this out there. So he really had a tough game against the Ravens on Christmas. Yeah. Since that game, started 5 games. Ravens, Washington, and then 3 playoff games. In those 5, it's a small sample, 5 games. Quarterback rating, 83. And in the playoffs, all 3 games had a quarterback rating under 90. It seems that the book on him is getting better in the sense that people feel like if you can play man-to-man coverage and force him to make sort of tight window throws that don't require anticipation as much as arm talent, that you got a fighting chance. What do you think, man? Is he gonna regress a little bit, or is he gonna be right back in the MVP conversation?
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation to have. I mean, it's really hard to replicate what he was able to do in 2023 and 2024 because he was really, really good. And I think what separates him and what is so impressive about his overall ability and abilities is just the timing, it's the processing, it's the touch and the accuracy. Yeah. You know what I want to see more from head coach Kyle Shanahan is him putting Brock Purdy on the run a little bit more, with some bootlegs to the right to clear up that vision line for Purdy a little bit because he is a little bit shorter behind that offensive line, but also to pose that threat of running the football against the defense. And on the Pat McAfee show the other day, Purdy even said, Kyle, I hope you're watching. Maybe we can sprinkle in some RPOs from time to time because that can keep the defense honest a little bit.
Hold on, what?
What?
Say that part again. Say that part again.
On the Pat McAfee show, that part?
That was Purdy?
He said that, yeah, he's like, hey, Kyle, hopefully you're listening so we can sprinkle in some RPOs a little bit more.
No way.
Yeah. I mean, he said,
I don't watch Pat McAfee show on principle. He took shots at me. So that's one less view he gets. I'm going to put him out of business by just not watching. Yeah. I mean, who hasn't? During the Kinlaw thing, he was wrong. Oh. It's all right. But so Purdy was on the show.
Always protects the player, right?
Yeah, always. So Purdy was on the show and he said, hopefully Kyle's watching. Hopefully he lets me do more RPOs.
Yeah, that's something along those lines. Like more running plays or more RPOs, but a running play would obviously most likely be an RPO in this instance.
Cool.
So
interesting.
Yeah, and look, you think back to what he did against Green Bay, what he did against Detroit when the pocket broke down and he had to improvisationally make a play. I thought he was really impressive in that way. I mean, he won, what was that? The Packers and Lions game in instances with his ability to make plays with his legs. So I want to see that be a part of this offense a little bit more. But yeah, there's no doubt he struggled a little bit against some upper echelon defenses. And that's not just this past year against Cleveland. Let me throw that game in there too, against Minnesota, against Baltimore, then in the playoffs. But 2 years ago too, wild card round against Seattle. A lot of people forget. Yeah. A little bit choppy to start. And then against Dallas in the divisional round, he struggled a little bit. But what I give him credit for is that how he's able to respond to that early adversity, finish the game strong, and he was clutch in those playoff games 2 years ago, in the playoff games this year. Against Cleveland, too, still drove the team down the field if Jake Moody didn't shank that ball. And I thought he was okay in the Super Bowl. I mean, the offensive line protections did him absolutely no favors. And it just had him under duress running for his life all throughout the night. So I'd like to see Shanahan change the protections a little bit. But like you think about some of the other numbers that I think aren't like casual box score hunting statistics that Purdy did last year. Yards per attempt, number 1 in the league at 9.6. Deep ball completion rate, number 1 in the NFL at 55.3. Pressured completion rate was number 4. Red zone completion percentage, when the field gets condensed and things are moving a little bit quicker, he was 70.4%, number 2 in the NFL. And then the deep ball catchable rate percentage, number 1, and the receiver target separation was 14th. So while you can say, yeah, defenses can catch up to Brock Purdy, he might struggle, I could make the argument and counter against that and say, well, he finally has a full offseason. And as you get older and more experienced, usually with that more experience comes better play and just understanding the league as a whole.
No doubt. I think he's a hell of a quarterback. But all those numbers you just listed off, they're so good. Number 1 in the league and number 4. And I just feel like he set the bar so high. It's going to be
to regress then.
But statistically, I don't know that he's like his play is going to actually regress. I think he's a hell of a quarterback, but the book on him is only going to get better, which he can't. I mean, that's on any player who's in the league. And then I feel like his supporting cast is only going to get worse as he gets more money, which he can't control. I mean, that's any highly paid quarterback in the league. But he was in this really advantageous position where he came in as pretty much close to a finished product. He was very experienced. He was on a great team. There wasn't a real book on him. Anytime he rolled to the left, people were like, oh my God, he can do that? Like, it seems like teams have a better idea. It's been about 20-something starts. Once you've been exposed that long, there's a book on what you do well, what you don't do well. Everyone knows what you want him to not do, which is throw over the middle and what you and dice up your zone coverage. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. He's going to get $60 million a year. He's going to be maybe an MVP candidate again this year, making $900,000. But it's going to be hard to keep up that level of efficiency. And even if he can, it doesn't mean that he's fallen off. Just saying. Just want to temper expectations.
Having the same offensive line, I think, is going to help him. Having the same contingent of weapons around him, I also think is going to be beneficial, barring a Brandon Ayuk trade. And I think what defenses are going to do, to be honest with you, throw out a lot more zone coverages, because against Baltimore, that's where he really struggled. Some of the disguised blitzes, corner blitzes, that's what Steve Spagnuolo did in the Super Bowl with Trent McDuffie, and that really caused a lot of problems. That can also be tied to Kyle Shanahan not really having great protection set up for Brock Purdy as far as the offensive line and just the nuances of offensive line play. But you're right. I mean, he put up such great numbers in 2023 that it is easy to kind of regress in a way from how well he played, being top 5 in MVP voting and being top 5, top 10 statistically in all those categories that I just mentioned.
We'll see what his numbers are if they trade Brandon Ayuk. Gio Du says, this talk of wide receiver makes me sure they're picking defensive line. Well, you know ball. You know the 49ers. All Niners says, Grant, will there be a press conference with Kyle, John, etc. prior to the draft? That way you can ask them. Yes, it'll be Monday at noon. Good question. King, 2144, thank you for the $2. Tinker, yeah, but there's so much to this offense, Maine.
Yes. I loved a good comment in there, too. I think from WG, he said, marriage equals regressed.